Old man doing a podcast. Real weirdos. We have English degrees. Real weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long.
So speaking of squirting blood out your ass, we also watched The Matrix Regurgitations, Revelations, Resurrections,
Resuscitations. I like
Resuscitations. That's a good one. You know, I jokingly titled it in my notes, Regurgitations, but this is legitimately, and I'm not fucking kidding here at all, this is the only movie I think I've ever seen that made me throw up.
Matrix.
I hated it so much, and it was so hard on my system and my brain and my stomach. And granted, I had seen the previous 3 films in the last 24 hours, but it had been a pretty good time in between. I hung out all night. I slept and came at it fresh in the morning, fresh as a little daisy with my little footy jams on, and watched it with really no expectation at all. The logical side of me, I think, thought it would be bad, but I tried to divorce myself from that. Be like, okay, I hope it's good. And after watching it, I had to go outside to get some air. And I walked over to the park, and I felt ill, and I legitimately vomited. It was possibly the most unbearable experience I've ever had, like watching a movie.
Were you drinking beforehand?
No, nothing. I had a light breakfast, a light healthy breakfast. It was the movie. I've thought that you would put this out there, but no, it was the movie.
You have the constitution of a wet marshmallow.
That is not true. I have the constitution of Iron Man plus Robert Downey Jr. plus Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my God. I don't
vomit.
You have it here, folks.
I'm not.
You
if I'm drunk,
vomited.
I might vomit, but yeah, not from a movie. This movie poisoned me. It poisoned my body. It poisoned my mind. I'm not going to say it's the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was the most uncomfortable cinematic experience I might have ever had.
Well, I also didn't like it, but I want to hear from Alex first, actually. Because he seems of equal, hatred than you.
I mean, at one point it moved past hatred because I couldn't process what I was watching. Even the first half of the film. This movie is fucking nuts to anyone listening to this podcast. This movie is fucking insane. I don't know what happened when they were making this movie. I don't know the storyline. I don't know the plot. Sometimes there seems to be these weird overarching meta commentaries on itself, but also on society. Sometimes there's weird political undertones thrown into the dialogue. I watched this movie with the subtitles on, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made in my entire life because I actually had to read what these people were saying.
Oh,
Jeff,
man.
This movie fucking sucks.
Jeff, did you like The Matrix Rababagabas?
This is circling the drain already. Oh, man.
Welcome to the Reel Weirdos.
Oh, man, this podcast is just circling the drain.
Hey, don't say that. That's mean.
Oh, man. Okay, so
We
The
love our
Matrix
podcast.
4 is, which I'm going to call it, it's just The Matrix 4, and that's how
Yeah.
I represent it, is dog shit. I mean, I can't, I'm not going to sit here and be like, this movie was actually pretty good.
Jeff,
I tried to
the
do
lore.
with the second Matrix. No.
The Lord.
Go fuck yourself. Because anything that they built that was worth anything at all, Matrix 4 came in like a large, obese baby, just kicking down fucking block towers of ideas. This movie was obnoxiously bad. It was so bad, it seemed like it was trying to hurt my feelings. Throughout the movie, there was something vindictive going on here.
It's aggressive.
Yeah, it's a movie that hates you, and
It
it
does.
hates that you like the Matrix.
You know what it feels like? It feels like when Agent Smith jumps into other beings and corrupts their bodies and minds. That's what this movie did to me. It corrupted me. It poisoned me. It sickened me to the core, and I don't quite understand how to put that into words. It's a very strange organism, this film.
It's a movie. I've never seen a AAA multi-million-dollar movie be so fragmented and disjointed and just outright bonkers. Just
and
outright
lazy.
Just lazy and like let's talk, I mean, from just the unbelievably either generic or unlikable new cast members to
I don't remember them.
To Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss just phoning it in. Just phoning. Carrie-Anne Moss is phoning in this fucking role. It does not seem like she actually wanted to come back to this movie at all.
know.
It doesn't have Lawrence Fishburne. For some reason, we don't know. He was waiting for a call from Lana Wachowski, who is the solo. Lily Wachowski is not a part of this project. It was a solo Wachowski product, which is even weirder. I could not find any reason for that. Why?
I have some.
Oh, you
I can
do?
interject it now or later.
No, please now, while we're talking about
so
it.
Lily, I guess this film, Lena started writing it coinciding with the death of her parents, and that was the way of her dealing with it. And simultaneous to losing two people who were very important in her life, I think that she poured herself into two other people who were very important in her life, which is Neo and Trinity. And so that was the sort of reasoning there. Lily had sort of the opposite reaction, where it's like, I'm trying to go into a new phase of my existence, and I don't want to go back to something that I've already done and have been done with, essentially.
That is the healthy and smart way of. I wish they both would have done that.
Can I bridge this into
Please.
something else? Okay, please, he says. Yeah. So there's an element of this movie that. So I didn't hate this movie starting off. I was like, okay, Neo's in the Matrix. I was slightly annoyed, however, by the element of him being a game designer and this whole thing surrounding it. For one, there's the meetings. The meetings are annoying, but there's also the boss. And this goes into this whole idea of this movie being very self-reflexive in a way that I've never seen except for Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Exactly. No,
This movie, I would have thought, if you had asked me beforehand, like, what would Lana Wachowski have taken influence from in the last 20 years of cinema? I could have listed quite a few things. Jay and Silent Bob reboot, not one of them. Definitely not. Where you're like, okay, just because you recognize that what you're doing is a formula doesn't make it less annoying. And it's also weird, right? It feels weird.
So,
please, Alex.
Yeah.
Jump in. I'm drunk.
It's just classic. It's classic, like, postmodern self-referentiality. But it's taken to a totally different level that I've never seen before. It takes this idea of, like, meta, but, like, turns it into this full circle almost, to the point where I have no idea what the fuck was going on at the beginning of the movie. I actually thought that they were ditching the sci-fi lore. I actually was like, holy shit, they're making a movie right now about a video game designer. Are they literally trying to sell this to me like it was a video game? I had like...
It's not, though. Someone should explain to Lana Wachowski what a video game is.
Well, no, that's the thing, is at the same time, The Matrix Online was a huge video game, massive, and it had like a huge, not huge, but it had a pretty solid community that was like very solid, core community that was very involved in the game. And so I don't know if like they were taking this game is like, Alex, this movie is so self-referential and I called it in my notes like ironic meta, which is two words I never thought I'd ever put together. Two words I never thought could go together, is meta and irony. But somehow this movie is able to create the most ironic meta scenes. Like, is this the most meta movie you've ever seen?
As a AAA movie, yes.
Like, as far as not a movie
Yes.
that's trying to do it as an art piece.
No, yeah, exactly.
It's not a joke that I say that this is taking its cues from Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah.
And that is the most meta thing I've ever seen, and it succeeds better than this movie does, because it's like, I don't know. Kevin Smith is up and down with me. I'm not going to get into it fully because this is not the venue for that in this podcast. But it's like, that movie kind of works. This movie does not, because it's like, not only is that a weird thing to do with this property, it doesn't make sense with the rest of the movie either. It's it feels divorced from the rest of the film.
Yes.
And I mean, I don't know what she thinks a game is. I'll say that again. But there were some elements of this that were really strange to me, where I felt like Neo in the first maybe 30 minutes of the film was a surrogate for Lana Wachowski. There's a scene especially where he meets with his employer, and they talk about how WB, Warner Brothers, their parent company, is going to make a sequel. And guess what? They're going to make it with or without you. So as the creator of this thing that set the world on fire in 1999, you're either in or you out. So, pretty fucking heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting in a weird way if they had gone somewhere with it.
I mean,
but it's completely forgotten.
It was so off-putting, though. That whole thing, I was like, wait, did you just say Warner Brothers? Like, yeah, I was like, you just said the name of a real studio. Like, you just said the name of an actual film studio.
The parent company of The Matrix.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, this is like they're making fun of their own people. Like,
but
it's
1,000%. It's like, yeah, we would have made the movie with or without you. It'd be cool if that went somewhere. Maybe you could have done some kind of meta irony, but for The Matrix, it's like, you have to do something with that if you're The Matrix.
Well, no, it's
Make it Matrixy.
It's the thing is like, it's that The Matrix set up a world where they never acknowledged our existence as the audience, because that would be fucking weird, right? Like, it would be like if Star Wars acknowledged us as well.
Yeah. Matrix is a thing where you could do that potentially.
Yes.
Not in this film. And it's also, I would also like to point out that this is the worst comedy of the year, by the way.
Oh my god. The moments of levity in this film are...
Before we jump to that, do you want to chime in on the other thing, Jeff?
Well, I mean, this movie was very strange for me because I came into it. I mean, when I mentioned it on Discord that I was like coming into this movie expecting what it was. I was expecting this. I was going, this is going to be action, bullshit, nostalgia, memberberry schlock.
We expected it to be like generic, which it wasn't.
But
it was
self-contained, right? Within the universe of The Matrix. I didn't know that they were going to be memberberry nostalgia so quite literally. With the video game thing.
It did that, but then it went in this insane other direction, which we'll get to, which I don't even know if I can properly describe what this did to my brain.
Once I got past, because, all right, so the beginning opening scene, you have a recreation of the opening scene of the first movie, to the point of where I was like, okay, are they just going to actually do this? Are they actually just going to like tongue-in-cheek recreate the first scene and make it think like, what's going on here? Then you learn, oh, this is a modal, it's a simulation that's trying to like run all these different variables, blah, blah, blah. Who the fuck cares? Anyway, once you get past that bullshit and you learn like, oh, the synthetic Morpheus and this new lead female character, whatever her fucking Bugs, whatever her name was. Like,
Bugs Bunny. I was on board at this point. I was like, okay, sure.
It was confusing, but I was giving it a chance.
Yeah.
But then actually, the second half of the first act, beginning of the second act, I was kind of on board. Honestly, like I'm ashamed to say it. Like the first little chunk of this movie, when you get over the awful opening, I was like, okay, like this is really self-referential when they were doing like the meetings and they were like repeating themselves and regurgitating the same
the game
taglines.
designer fucking settings, the game designer thing was
very meta because it was
hard.
like, oh, this looks like exactly why we have such garbage video games today is because
and movies.
Movies.
Referential to Hollywood. I have a note in my notes that is the Matrix Hollywood in this movie? But it forgets about that.
yeah, these board meetings that are so out of touch with like the current gamer market, and they're just like, bullet time. We need to flip it. Their proverbial what the fuck switch. OMG. All the ways that they talk was so like someone who's just feels very repugnant about this movie. Had a very boomer feeling to it.
Before you get past that, I feel like that whole thing was an analysis of the current cinematic market.
Sure.
It felt like, okay, we have to do this again. Like, what do people like? People like explosions. People like action. I think, Alex, you have a commentary on this as well.
Yeah, no, they said, like, I thought it was actually, like, even almost a commentary on the past 3 films, since we just got done talking about it. You know, one of them was like, oh, we need to have guns, we need to have fighting, and just blasting away all this stuff, you know? And they talk about it as a video game, but you can easily see how that seeped into the second and third Matrix. And then one of them goes, well, you know, people don't like just the mindless violence anymore. They're big on ideas. And then one other guy goes like, yeah, ideas are big right now. They're like so big right now. And it's like, I was like losing my fucking mind, okay? Because I'm ready to go into this fucking like sci-fi movie continuation, and I'm like, what is happening right now? Because I thought The Matrix was like, for all intents and purposes, for me as a viewer and the continuation of the story, I thought The Matrix was done. Like I thought, like
They all did.
right? Like so, I was like, where the fuck am I? What is happening?
A lot of this movie was like an upturned nose at Gen X. It felt like Lena Wachowski was really like turning her nose away at like the cell phone generation, like because like all of these people that are part of this crew like are so devoid of any humanness. They all speak in like text language, like WTF. Like nobody fucking talks like that.
BT
like,
dubs, bro.
Yeah.
Like nobody talks like that. Like that's
people
obviously
do,
like a
but,
way that like a fucking boomer would see like this Gen X and like the way they just talk in text language, and like even you have the scene with the Merovingian who's like bip, 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 on your phones. Bip, 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 bip.
He's like, you created Facebooky. He says that.
But no, we'll get to because that's when the movie has already lost its
When he
thread,
comes
so.
back, I had already lost my fucking
He
mind.
fakes reference to Mark Zuckerberg in this movie.
Yep.
Like that's how
Nope,
meta
it-
this movie got. Literally,
It gets so fucking unbelievably annoyingly meta at times to where it's like I would almost expect it like it to be like the frame would tear down the middle like an old school cartoon, and like Lena Wachowski would come popping out and be like, I directed this and this is a movie. Like it was just
So what was the moment when this movie like broke you? Because
I have one.
I think it's a weird one because I was interested for the first part of it, the first act, Neo being in the Matrix. I was like, okay, I don't understand why you're doing this kind of commentary, but the fact that Lena Wachowski was seriously leaning into this element of Neo being her surrogate, I was like, is this movie gonna get fully self-aware? Like I wanted this movie to break my brain in the way that the first Matrix did when I was 11 years old or 12 years old, you know?
no way.
But I didn't think it was gonna be like that.
I expected either a generic action film or knowing what the Wachowskis tend to do, which is to lean full on into weird in a way that doesn't translate, for it to do that. And I didn't quite get either of those. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever this movie was trying to do didn't translate, but by the time 2/3 of it had elapsed, my brain could not comprehend what was happening on screen.
So I have a very specific moment where this film kind of sent me into a period of what I would call maybe 10 minutes of traumatic crying. But it was when there was a machine that had joined forces with the humans that showed up that was like
Literal
weird.
Deus Ex Machina.
It was like the literal mixture of a porpoise or like a beluga whale and a manta ray of some type. And it had
everything they needed to do the final mission.
It had
everything. It was a Swiss Army knife that just got delivered upon the fucking cast.
Not
It was
only
like,
that,
we have
it
all
made-
the shit we need. Here you go.
It made like cute animal noises. Like it was like
like when you first meet the bots that rescue Neo, you're like, okay, cool. Like these bots look similar to like the construction of Sentinels. They got the red eyes and kind of that same aesthetic. So you're like, okay, I get it. Like the machines, like some of them join humans.
This is where the lore gets bananas and stupid.
But then
sense.
you just meet this fucking glowing blue magic manta ray that comes in with every. I said something to myself at the third act of this movie where I was like, oh, and the day is saved by CGI.
Yeah.
Because there is a moment, like a 10 to 15 minute stretch in the movie, maybe not that long, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes, where no living actors are on the screen.
The heist scene or something?
Yeah, it's all CGI. It's all fucking, it's ridiculous.
My brain checked out around the time when they were explaining why they were going to, or how they were going to do this heist to like get Trinity out of the Matrix. Yep. And I had this moment where I was like, why do I care? Let me examine this. Jesse, why do you care about this? Is there some sort of stakes involved? Because like even lore wise, this is where I'll give the second and third movie credit, is like there's a backdrop of lore that makes it kind of interesting, where I'm still kind of involved in some way. But this movie, it's like he needs to get Trinity out. Why? Because he loves Trinity. But why does this matter for the Matrix? And I assume there is some kind of explanation that's shoved in there ham-handedly somewhere. I think towards the end, especially when it gets to like the Neil Patrick Harris
Just
and that program. But man,
no.
I fucking hated it.
No.
I hated it so fucking much. It made me so angry. I was like, I don't care about Neo and Trinity. This is so poorly handled. Whatever lore you're trying to like put in the background here is so fucking bad. It's so fucking bad.
She took the worst part of the trilogy, which was the Neo-Trinity relationship. The worst part. The most dude, to this day, when
like
I watch
two
the
wooden
Matrix
actors
trilogy,
banging together. Great.
I skip through all the Neo-Trinity love scenes, especially that sex scene, but like all of like their scenes where they're just like passionately kissing each other because they just can't help touching each other because they're so in love. Like, ugh.
But Jeff, they're humans, and humans are not like machines.
But then they take that and shine a huge fucking spotlight on it, and then amplify the size of it by 100% to where it's now dominating the structure of the movie. Now it's no longer like, oh, these characters love each other and like maybe love can transcend the Matrix. But like, even if that's the case, they create such a huge deal about like Neil Patrick, like the exposition dump by Neil Patrick Harris. I was laughing out loud because I tried to liken it to the exposition dump in the first Matrix, and I was just dying. Like him running around super fast and just like explaining. He was explaining his plan like an anime villain.
It's amazing that it could possibly be worse.
He did.
Like,
and yet
it was like an anime. He was like, let me
so much
sit on
worse.
this couch and tell you exactly why and how I've been doing everything. Nobody asked. Nothing led up to this. There was absolutely... He was going to visit Trinity in a fucking machine shop.
So
nothing led up to this.
They took the lore that we were talking about before, like Buddhist, East Asian, reincarnation, Christianity, sci-fi, cyberpunk. They took all of that lore and it was reduced down to Trinity and Neo used to fuck They haven't fucked in a long time. Now they're old.
The,
They want to fuck
The
again.
idea that they can't fuck is what powers the Matrix, bro.
Exactly. Like that
You're
is
like,
the essence and fulcrum of the story.
My drunk anus.
It's just
I cannot. This movie did something to me, right?
So I think
It's-
I think we can start now talking about Act 3 of this movie, like in earnest.
Yeah.
Because I think like there's
I don't even know what to say about it.
what does
And
Act 3
that's-
start?
act of I would say the third act starts when they meet the Oracle.
They meet the Indian girl who was the Indian
Yes.
girl in the other film, and
Yeah,
the
Santi.
movie just
Yeah.
says things at you that your brain, if you have any kind of intelligence,
When they're in that like total fantasy land that looks like it was picked out of fucking like Narnia or some shit.
that is where my brain checked out.
She's like at the wishing. What were you, bitch? Galadriel?
Yeah,
she's
I
at her
know.
fucking like wishing well in her like forest. Like what the
I
fuck?
know. I was like,
what happened to the Oracle that was just sitting in the ratty ass project house making cookies with orphans? Like that
Exactly.
gave the Oracle like some attachment to this world. It's like no, the Oracle is like fucking Shiva who just lives in like the transcendent hyper fucking turn up the saturation world
It was
with
so
her
weird.
magic looking glass that lets her like become part of the Matrix. Like
it lets her
dude,
become part of that manta ray thing.
the amount
She
of
was in
Deus
it.
Ex Machina in this movie, but then the movie thinks it's so fucking clever because it's like, oh, Deus Ex is the name of the game company, and it's like, that's what we do, Deus Ex Machina. It's like, no, fuck you. You can't just introduce all the tools that all these characters are gonna need right away, and then just invalidate everything you've done up to that point.
My favorite part of the Oracle in this film was like she's like supposed to be driving or flying this orca porpoise manta ray robot that like saves everything or frees Trinity.
Does everything.
Yeah.
Literally does everything.
So the way that they show that, instead of like showing her actually in the vehicle, they like superimpose her image onto the flying like object of it, like as it's animated through the sky. So it literally is like off center, and it's just like
Your diction right here
I'm
is
sorry.
sending me back.
I'm just breaking down.
Don't apologize. Your diction right here is sending me back to when I was editing the Cranks episode, which you'll hear, where you're just like losing it in a way that I've never heard before.
God,
It's
this
so
movie sucks.
it's so it's so insulting. This movie is such it's like it was written by somebody who hated the Matrix.
It's like
as-
a
it was like
6-year-old wrote it, dude.
It's like Ryan Johnson wrote it.
I can't
It's-
even go to that because my brain completely rejected the last third of this film. I watched it, I tried to give it my attention, but my attention was like, no, stop, you're gonna die. You're gonna die if you like inhale this fucking miasma. Like, this movie made me throw up. It made me throw up. I went out, I had to go out into the world, and then I threw up because of this fucking movie. I hated
That
it.
is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
It
like, in
is.
my life.
I honestly don't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. And I've analyzed the factors in my life are surrounding it, and I've come to the conclusion it was the movie. And it's weird because I think it draws upon the things that we've been talking about apropos my relationship with the Wachowski franchise, where it's like The Matrix is this really cool movie. I fucking love The Matrix. But ever since then, in the second and the third, you have this kernel of what their filmography would become, which is the little ghost of an interesting idea, this little nexus. But everything that swirls around it is fucking schlock. It's like, it's so poorly handled, and they
Dude.
make such bad movies. And
Can I interject a couple reviews real quick?
sure, go for
Okay.
it. Why
So
the
Rotten-
fuck?
Sorry, Rotten Tomatoes. So it's divided 67-67.
67% positive ratings. What the fuck? Who are you?
I think it's a
What are you
protest
doing?
movie, honestly.
This is might be the worst thing I've ever seen.
It's a protest movie.
Okay.
It has to be.
So here's the top critic. This is an exaltation of thoughtless mediocrity. I just thought that was funny.
That's good. There are many top critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
The Matrix Resurrection is a recycling dump of murky effects, indifferent action, and crazily cluttered, relentlessly repetitive narrative. It's Groundhog's Day and Cyberpunk.
Yeah. Okay.
But
That's a good one.
I wanted the good ones are
Okay.
killing me. Top critic. The Matrix Resurrections is a breath of fresh air at a time when reboots are a dime a dozen. Somebody wrote that. Somebody wrote that with not
Who?
a shred of
What's their
irony,
name?
and then went home and drove their car
Tell
home.
me their fucking name on this
Noel
podcast.
D. Lilly from the Chicago Reader.
You know
this
what?
person,
You're a bad thinker, Noel. You're a bad thinker. You're a bad writer.
boom.
Boom.
The fact that this person is allowed to operate a motor vehicle is so worrying.
I mean,
to
let
me.
alone a pen or a typewriter of any type.
Okay, I got one more. Sorry.
It's okay. I have editing tools.
Okay, actually, the rest of even the good reviews are kind of meh. Like most of the rest of the ones, those are the two.
They're like
here we
6 out
go.
of 10s.
The Wachowskis pioneered the modern cinema that we know and love. It's fitting that The Matrix is back to resurrect it.
What?
Don't-
That doesn't even.
See,
you
like,
could have written that
Lillian
review without
Crawford-
even seeing the movie.
Fuck you.
Like, you could just. Yeah, you could have written that without ever seeing the movie, just going off of the title.
What is your world of intellectual philosophical poverty that you exist in that you write that review? That is fucking horrifying. That's almost as sickening as the movie itself.
Okay, so. Is it a protest movie? Is this movie honestly Wachowski just saying "fuck you" to Warner Brothers?
Oh my god!
Like,
No.
I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on.
No. Maybe the first third of it felt like that.
But remember when the girl says she goes bugs, as in Bugs Bunny?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Isn't Bugs Bunny
That's Warner Brothers. Yeah.
That's like the fourth.
WB.
See, so
That's like the fourth
WB.
line in the movie.
that's
WB.
it's so just it seems so intentional. I don't know.
I get what you're going for here, where the entire concept of this movie is a big middle finger to Warner Brothers. I could see that if The Matrix 2 and 3 did not exist.
Okay.
And the entire filmography after that of Lana Wachowski did not exist. But this tracks. It's just a continual downward spiral.
Damn.
Joseph Walsh, wisely, Wachowski isn't overly reverent with the material.
This movie is more high on its own farts than anything else I've ever had. This movie is it's like it fed me a terrible meal and then I had to deal with the farts of it afterwards. That's what it was like watching The Matrix 2 and 3. It's like I digested those movies and I was like, oh, thank God that's over. And then I had to deal with the farts afterwards. That's what this movie was.
Yeah, this. I don't know. This movie, it lost me at a lot of points. I mean, knuckle up and buckle up.
Oh, well, Knuckle Up, yeah, because Knuckle Up's in the third movie, so it's trying to be a callback.
No. They do it to a robot, though, too. There's
No.
this little sentient Groot-like robot that, does this fist pump with the guy. And
Just literally,
it was just what is happening?
that in one scene, in one fist bump, you have removed everything that was scary about the machine race.
Exactly, and everything
In the first
serious
movie,
about
everything
the
that
story.
made them these terrifying boogeymen.
Yeah.
You have just and sucked out of the film by fist bumping a little Groot robot.
You know, by the time this movie ended, what I generally do with movies when we watch them for the podcast is I have this voice recorder app where I will pause the movie and I'll just say things that occur to me, and then I'll write them down in notes. I didn't do this because at the end of this movie I was so fucking angry and I needed to go outside that I didn't do this, but I remember distinctly writing down, or saying, I guess, that like, oh, the black guy fist bumps the robot and then I wanted to kill myself or something like that. It was just such bad comedy. Anytime this movie tries to do levity.
Yeah, it's off. This man works for Rolling Stone. It is a Matrix movie that could have only come with 20 years of hindsight and insight. I was moved, impressed, far more than I expected to be. The emotional engineering of the Matrix Resurrections is exacting and rapturous.
It's the worst thing I've ever seen. Quite possibly.
This is a man who works for Rolling Stone. He probably gets paid like triple figures. Like triple
Rolling
digits.
Stone.
Triple digits.
Whatever. Just fucking
He gets
triple
paid like
fucking, you know what I mean?
$900 a
Six
year.
figures. He gets like that's what he should be
Yeah, I
paid.
know.
That's what he fucking should be paid.
Yeah. It's weird, right? It's weird for myself trying to analyze this movie because it doesn't feel like it should be the kind of movie that makes me throw up. It's like I've seen cinema. I've seen the scope of what cinema has to offer. I've seen things that are fucking horrifying. Things that have like touched me to the core of my being that I will never forget. And yet it is this movie whose like sensory information that it's channeling to me, I can't even take in.
I mean, it was like a cartel beheading video with Keanu Reeves in it, basically. That's like the
It's like a
same
movie
feeling
that-
I had.
It was brutal, brutish nonsense.
It poisons you. This movie
It poisons
literally
you.
poisons you, and you constantly try to resist, and I don't know. It's so toxic to its own source material. It hates itself. It is the most self-hating movie I've ever seen. It hates what it created. It hates the Matrix. It's so just snobby. And then we talk about the ending.
let me react real quick though.
Please,
Before
please
that.
do.
I think the analysis of it being pure, unadulterated toxicity is great because this is something that's never going to translate, but it is the most true thing that I will ever say on this podcast, ever, is I walked around for like an hour, maybe 2 hours after I watched this film, and I felt toxic. Like this movie infected me in a way that I found super uncomfortable, not just because of itself, but because I could not get rid of it. This movie intoxicated me in a way that I had to throw up.
You almost had to purge the poison.
I needed to purge the poison, and that was the physical poison. And before this, when I was laying down after that, when I went to my bed and laid down, I sent you guys a message, and I said, we need to do this whole fucking thing tonight. Because not only do I need to purge the poison out of my physical self, I need to purge the poison out of my mind. This is my mind vomiting the poison of this movie out of itself. Lena Wachowski, you are not invited to this podcast. Uwe Boll, you can come. Fucking Michael Haneke, director of Funny Games, totally welcome. Lena Wachowski, you made me fucking throw up. You're not invited.
Yeah.
Continue.
Oh my god. I mean, I just want to. I mean, we're 42 minutes into this episode, and we've literally spoken about everything that this movie has to offer, to the point where I feel like this movie needs to be
In a straitjacket?
No, like the way that the Matrix, the first one, changed cinema in the way we were talking about in the previous episode. This movie needs to change cinema in the other direction, if that makes any sense. Like, this needs to be the catalyst that goes, what the fuck are we doing?
The fact that
What
there
are we
positive reviews, the fact that there are positive reviews to this.
There's a lot. There's
a lot of
67%. There's more than, it's the majority.
Fuck all.
I don't get it.
I've never felt so bad about the species, except when Trump got elected, maybe.
What are we doing here anymore? What
Yeah.
the fuck
Are we in the Matrix?
doing?
This must be the Matrix if this movie is garnering positive reception. I feel like fucking Neo. I'm looking around, I'm like, I don't exactly see the code, but you all are fucking insane.
This is the worst movie made in the last 15 years. Easy.
This is the worst movie I've seen this year, for sure.
Yeah.
I can't think of...
I was subjected to funny games this year.
Yeah.
I subjected you guys to In the Name of the King, which I actually
This is
enjoy
worse.
because it's charming until it gets boring because of how inept it is. And then because I'm a sadist, I enjoyed you guys going insane while we watched Christmas with the Cranks. And I enjoyed making the supercut of that. But this movie...
It's such a twisted piece of, I mean, and dare I even say art. It's such a snotty upturned nose at everything that everyone cared about for the previous movies. It's not just it's not just ironically meta and does a shitty part of it. It's not just boring and unremarkable characters that fade into nothingness. It's not the fact that Carrie Ann Moss and Keanu Reeves basically fucking phoned it in. It's...
Do you think they did, or you think that that's just their performance?
No, I think that they genuinely didn't give a shit to do this movie.
Yeah.
I think they genuinely thought that this part of their life was over. And they go, how much are you going to pay me to be in about 15 minutes of this movie? Carrie Ann Moss said, how much are you going to pay me?
But
all right.
I mean, I think I'll disagree. I think Carrie Ann Moss has been in television for 20 years. She's probably stoked that she's like in a major motion picture again.
I don't know. Television pays quite well, man. I don't know. I think that maybe Lawrence Fishburne didn't want to be.
He was waiting for the call, man.
But I know he was waiting for the call.
It should have had Morpheus. It should have had... okay, this is another thing we could talk about, as if we haven't trashed this crap enough.
Oh, my God.
Like, dude...
The fucking Smith.
The new Lawrence Fishburne and the new Smith can eat my fucking butthole. Okay?
Like the new Smith is so bad.
Not only do these characters not feel like the other characters that they're supposed to be channeling...
Morpheus is supposed to be the comic relief now.
Morpheus is not Morpheus. Smith is definitely not Smith.
So this goes to what Jeff was saying about the movie being twisted and like cruel. It like makes fun of the characters in a way, or turns them like shitty in a way, to like they just turn them into douchebags. When you're like, some people really liked these characters because they were like deep and complex and they were serious, and you turn them into these like meme bots. Like, I don't know. It's
like early 20s TikTok videos turned Matrix.
Exactly.
It's so bad. It's so fucking bad. The way, I actually lost my train of thought because of the TikTok.
You should have. Yeah. This movie does
Morpheus.
that.
Yeah. So they say in the beginning that Morpheus, this version, is Neo's interpretation of Morpheus and Smith and the blend of them, because they say, oh, Smith helped you become who you were, and so he is equally as valuable, blah, blah, blah. And so that's who this Morpheus is supposed to be. Doesn't embody that at all. Doesn't carry that energy at all. All he does is wear fun suits.
He's like, I am wearing different sunglasses. Oh,
I got colored suits because the other Morpheus wore all black and was super serious, but I'm like super lighthearted, funny Morpheus.
Exactly.
Fuck you. It's like a Rick and Morty satire.
He's like doing a little cocktail dance in fucking like the white space and everything.
Oh my God. And then it's Tom instead of Mr. Anderson. The ham-fisted. Why? You didn't even need to put Smith in the movie at all. You didn't need to put Smith in the movie.
Especially a Smith who wasn't Smith at all.
He wasn't.
You know? At least that guy in the third movie sounded like Smith. There was a moment in the third movie, Matrix Reverberations, where he's saying this.
The guy who plays Bane.
Bane, yeah. And he's like, Mr. Anderson. And he goes on a 3-minute tirade that is obviously Agent Smith. And Neo's like, who are you? And I was like, fuck you! Fuck you, movie. You know who that is. Don't play this. You can't have Neo be the one and have some guy speaking exactly like Agent Smith being like, Mr. Anderson.
Can I say too?
And not understand?
You guys,
That part pissed me off too.
you want to know another part? This will probably piss you guys off again. You remember when they asked him to fly?
Oh my god.
And he
Oh my god. And it's like such
he tries to like fly and he goes, he like looks at everyone and it's like almost like everyone is looking at the camera. He's like,
See,
that's not gonna happen.
This is the worst comedy of the year. Anytime this movie tries to be a comedy, it's the worst comedy of the year.
And then, okay, so, I mean, I need, my headache is throbbing. I need to just fucking kill myself. I need to relieve myself of this conversation.
Okay.
The ending of this film is
you-
quite possibly...
the end, yes.
I have never wanted to die so badly. I wish I was filming myself when the final scenes, because I was like, I remember in increasingly louder volumes going, ugh, ugh.
I'll turn my camera on. Maybe that'll help.
And then when they fly, oh my god, when they fly away hand in hand, it was like, oh, I need to turn your camera off, Jesse. Jesus Christ, I can't do it. Like, it's distracting the shit out of me.
What? I'm handsome. What are you talking about?
When they fly away hand in hand at the end of the movie, I was like, oh!
Yeah.
I remember like loudly groaning.
The
It was so fucking. The end of this movie, she's like killing him over and over and like snapping him back into existence, and like because they control it and they're like turning to each other. Oh, we were on our way to change your world, and we just thought it'd be like. There's just so like there's this levity to both of their characters that was non-existent for the entire 3 other movies, and yet now they're like, oh, we're like quipping with each other, and we're like super
we're gonna
flippant
paint the
with
sky rainbows.
Oh, yeah, you want to paint the sky rainbows? Oh, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, we should totally. What the fuck are we talking about?
No, when they
What are we talking
the
about?
final shot when they zip up into the sky with each other, and it just cuts, and they're like holding hands,
Hand in hand, I might add.
The CGI, let me just say, looked like they were still using the same like CGI engine from 2003, and
Oh yeah.
it reminded me a lot of when Jesse said that he couldn't continue in the Harry Potter series because of the end of the third one.
The freeze
When it
frame
freeze
of the third movie.
All I could think of was like, holy shit, no way did they just do that.
I got a broom.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I got a girlfriend.
Michael got away and the plot made no sense, but I got a broom. You're like, cool, Harry. Fuck you. I don't care.
And that's exactly how you feel at the end of this movie. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I flipped off my computer screen as the credits were rolling. I was just like, fuck
I
you.
couldn't believe it.
Like all the it's so self-important. It's so Lena Wachowski thinks she's so fucking cool with all this like self-referential meta humor. Oh, look how they plasticized and corporatized the Matrix like they did with this video game. How they like pan across all of the toys and everything. It's like, oh, just fuck you.
I know.
You know,
It
if
was
you
so
had gone
weird.
somewhere with that, I would have been into it. But the fact that they went to this place where I don't even know how to describe it because my brain, through sheer force of whatever, like self-preservation probably, decided to not be able to handle it. I even went back. I was like an hour towards the end, and like my brain was like, I have not comprehended what's been happening for the last half an hour. So I actually went back to my pure detriment and watched it again, and I was like, yeah, I didn't get anything else more. And it's I don't know. I don't understand fully what this movie has done to me. And it's wild to say that, because as much as I have criticized past Wachowski movies, I've always considered them interesting filmmakers. And I know this isn't both of them, it's just Lena, whatever.
These reviews that I read were written today. Somebody wrote that today.
Yeah.
Somebody sat at their computer and wrote that this very day that we're sitting here. It sickens me. And I know, I know most of the time I try to be Mr. like smooth it over. Oh, let's not be too pedantic. Let's not be too like criticizing.
Oh, here comes
everybody.
the bullshit alarm.
Exactly. No. If you are listening to this podcast and you're thinking, they're being really overly hard on this movie, go fuck yourself.
If you think this movie is good, you and I are not part of the same species. There's no way.
This movie is poison for the mind, snarky and cynical against everybody. This would be like if of a Marvel movie was like, haha, you fat comic book nerd pieces of shit.
Exactly.
It's like that's how it feels watching this movie and liking The Matrix. It feels like Lana Wachowski is calling me a fat, ugly, stupid Matrix nerd.
Exactly.
The whole it's like because I liked the things I liked that now that's like funny or like they're making fun of. And it's like, no, you're making fun of the things that made your movie good. The fuck do you think you're doing?
No, I know. It was basically telling everyone, all the fans, like, oh, you're all blue-pilled. At one point, they used the word sheeple. That's all you got to know.
Oh, they use it multiple times. They call the people in the Matrix sheeple.
And it's...
And there's like multiple times, dude. The blue pill, red pill. Now, one of my favorite things, I don't know if it was, I think it was Lily Wachowski, but Elon Musk, like way back when, was like, take the red pill, and then Ivanka Trump replied, and she was like, taken, and Lily Wachowski replied, and she was like, fuck both of you. It was the best tweet I've ever seen.
Good shit, Lily.
It was so perfect.
Here's my idea. Do you guys want to hear my idea for the Matrix sequel, disregarding all of this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Here's my idea. You bring it back, right? Maybe it's 50-year-old Neo. He eats both pills, and he just rides the line. He rides the line between realities, and it becomes like a Jodorowsky level fucking nonsense carnival.
Or Constantine.
Yeah, have like Lynch.
He could just
have
be
like David
Constantine.
Lynch. Fucking. Oh yeah, they speaking of that, they said on an interview, I think it was Colbert was interviewing Keanu, and he was like, is there any characters that you want to bring back? Like, and he was like, John Constantine.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was like, they could have made that movie, and it would have been better.
Yeah. It's like
they could have not made this movie, and it would have been. I've never the absence of this thing would have been better for humanity.
Oh, exactly. I would have given it way better of an artistic review if it was a thing.
Because they're interesting artistic people, the Wachowskis, and I'm never going to take that away from them. If you had the ability when you were not famous to make The Matrix, then fucking kudos. I will never take that away from you. But yeah, I mean, to have done what you've done since then, which is just...
This is almost like if James Cameron ended up making The Room. Okay? I'm just going to put that out there. But with like a AAA,
I love that.
AAA budget.
I love that.
Right? Like, it's just insanity to me. I just don't even know how this thing exists.
Like, we'll cast Leo DiCaprio as Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah.
And we'll just, let's go from there.
Tommy Wiseau as Neo would have been way more interesting.
Dude, fucking Keanu is the least of the serious problems. He's just doing what he's doing Keanu.
And the thing is he probably is doing it to get money so he can just pay like all the random people who worked on this movie.
Dude,
and then just
Keanu
go on
is
to
so
do his
awesome.
life.
Well, let's give Keanu a shout out here. Like, yeah, anytime you read about Keanu, he's just being a really awesome guy. I mean, granted, he has the money to do it, so like, maybe you can get cynical about that. But a lot of people have the money to be awesome and are not.
Exactly.
And he just decides to, because he feels like a real, genuine, sensitive human who understands the pain of being human. So, Keanu, you're welcome on the show.
There you have it.
Wachowski, get fucked.
Lily, though, you can come on because that tweet is pretty funny.
Yeah, Lily, we're interested. See, that's the thing about our show is we're not going to talk about your life or your filmography or anything. You just pick a movie, and we'll talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
If you want to go deeper into
for
you,
directors.
we'll do that. Yeah, only directors. No. Anyone except Wachowski, James Franco, Bill Cosby. What are the other ones? Who else have we
I
disbarred?
would love to have.
I love that we have now put Lena Wachowski in the category of those. I think we should maybe stay away from that.
Well, it's people who we have.
I would love to
We're not saying Lena Wachowski is a sexual deviant.
We are
We're
not.
just saying.
We're just saying, fuck your movies.
We're just saying fuck your movies, and also sexual deviants aren't welcome on our podcast. Completely unrelated.
Completely, it is completely
sexual
unrelated, by the way.
deviants, I would say, are welcome, but sexual violators are not.
What about Lars von Trier?
I don't know. I mean, isn't he like a Nazi?
He's a Nazi and a sexual violator.
I don't know about that.
He made Nymphomaniac.
We just clicked over to 1 hour, and we must end before I decide to go kill myself.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
What is that? Jeff Casino, who is on this podcast at this moment? What did you say?
I said that we just clicked over to 1 hour, and I need to end this conversation before I kill myself.
Oh, I heard you. Yeah.
Okay, then what the fuck is wrong with you? Jesus.
Have you met me? Have you met me?
I am so lost. I'm as lost right now as I was in The Matrix, and that's saying something.
As lost as my brain was watching this movie. Yeah. So watch the first Matrix and then don't watch any of the others.
Our brains are melted. Thank you.
Oh God.
The first Matrix is great. The others not so much. The last one,
Extra.
I don't know.
Negative.
It's gonna be a while until I can say whether it's the worst thing I've ever seen, but it's up there.
Follow the blog and for a more in-depth review of The Matrix later.
Yeah. Jeff Casino is going to write a 10-page
No, I'm not.
thesis.
I just know you, and I know that
realweirdos.com/edu.
I honestly think that you are the type of person that while you hate this, you can't let why you hate it just settle. And I think you will end up writing something about
The
how
thing
much
is,
you hate it.
I think you're right, actually, in this circumstance, because I don't understand how much I hate it.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's why I say, like, pay attention to the blog. I'm not joking. Pay attention to the blog website because I guarantee you an in-depth analysis on why this is horrible is definitely coming.
I need to understand why I think the way that I do. Especially when it comes to movies.
So does everyone, bro.
Yeah, but most people don't, I don't know. They don't write fucking things about the Matrix.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, you know what? Thank you for listening to The Reel Weirdos. We are 2.5 white men talking about movies for way too goddamn long. And we're the most professional movie podcast on the dark web. And we appreciate you listening. And we will be back next week to talk about something hopefully better.
Good night.
Jeff. No. Oh, you've stopped? Damn it.
Now our podcast is done, and we have to run. We know it is sad, but we had so much fun. Don't be bereft, Jesse, Alex, and Jeff. We'll be back real soon. The Reel Weirdos. We talk about movies for way too goddamn long. Bo 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 bo.